Welcome to Getting to Know You, that is Stonebridge residents and staff. And today we are doing a second part of talking with residents about our environment, particularly in our region. If you watched last week, you might have noticed that the title was Preservation of our environment. Today we're looking at appreciation of our environment and appreciating for people who are residents who have developed a new way of doing that. And so on the bench across from me, and we're glad to be using this lovely space for today without any rain, which we thought we would have, are Bev and Tony Glockler, and over here is Rick and Carol Ober. And they formed something called the Trailblazers. If you read your weekly bulletin carefully, this won't be a surprise. And you might have even been in the first group that went on a walk with them. But I think we should just start off with, what is the Trailblazers? Who's going to answer? Tony?
Trailblazers, we have to give credit to Robin Doherty.
Okay.
Last year, she got a group of us together and said, would you like to walk outside? We said, sure. And she said, good. And mostly we walked on the towpaths of the local canal. But it was sort of informal and irregular. So this year we decided to make it a little more formal, a little more regular, and relieve her of having to come with us all the time. And so the Obers and the Glocklers got together and said, we'll lead this, and we'll meet every Friday morning in the lobby, and whoever wants to come is welcome.
So you did have one session already.
We've had one session already.
Okay.
We went on the towpath just to start out with something that was easy and straightforward. So the newbies who were amongst us could see what it's like.
So Carol and Rick, since you collaborated, how did you feel about your first excursion? Did it work?
Oh yes, we had a wonderful walk, lots of people, and
About how many people went?
15 people. We
15?
had 15 people.
Great.
We advertised this and advertised it accurately, that this one would be straight and flat. And what we did is we walked out for half an hour, and the faster people may have gotten a little further ahead, but at half an hour everybody turned around, so by the time we got back to the cars, everybody had caught up with the
You left with the same amount of people that you came with.
That's a very
good.
important goal of this program.
I'm glad to hear that.
and we're carpooling, so some of us have to drive and fill up the cars, but
Right.
that makes it workable because we
Right.
can't use the buses.
Right. Well, that's great to hear that it's not just an idea. It's already worked once. Before we get into a little bit more about what you're planning and so on, I'm sort of curious. Would each of you say something about what your sort of past experience is with this kind of hiking and going out and trailblazing in some way? Did you do it as a child, or did it happen in college when you went to Kathmandu with a bunch of people? Or Carol, how did you get started?
I've always done it. I spent my summers in New Hampshire, and so I've climbed all of the White Mountains. And I rode horses a lot, so I was always going cross country. So I always loved to be outside and exploring new places.
Great. How about you, Rick?
Well, I started as a Cub Scout and as a Boy Scout, and then I spent summers in Algonquin Park in Canada, where we did a lot of canoe tripping. I have 121 days of canoe tripping in Algonquin Park, and my master's canoeist. I took Carol there on a canoe trip for our honeymoon, and a number of years later,
You get 2 points for that?
I know, it was fun.
she carried the pack and I carried the canoe.
That sounds a good sharing plan. How about the Glocklers?
Well, as a child in the Lebanese mountains, we used to spend our summers in the mountains because it's cooler. And typically we would take a walk every afternoon. We'd take a walk through the hills. But the best hike I've ever taken was climbing Mount Monadnock in Maine, and that's a really that's a really nice climb.
I'm sure there are people who are watching that probably have done that walk as well. There are a lot of Mainers that we have around here. So, Bev, how about you?
Well, growing up, we all liked the outdoors, and so we would go exploring. And as a family, we have done a lot of climbing around many, many parks. The highlight was when Tony and I hiked in the Swiss Alps.
That's great. So you all come with happy memories of hiking,
Definitely.
and some experience. I don't know. I didn't ask the three of you how many points you had for someplace that you had. But the other thing that I think you have in common for this particular project is that each of you has had already experience with this region that we talk of as Mercer, Middlesex, Somerset, and how lucky we are to have open spaces here. And so I was going to ask you if each one of you might have a place that you'd like to put on the list for the Trailblazers because you've walked it before, or you thought you'd like to introduce it to other people.
I think one of our favorite as a family, or even the two of us, is walking the path that goes by the bridge. That's sort of the logo of the Montgomery Township.
This is the one off Bridge Point
It's
Road?
it's
or if
off
you
of
go-
Dead Tree Run.
Yeah, well, if you go out Bridge
Yes.
Point, you get to it.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
And some of it
It's right near here.
is just plain dirt, but then because of the marsh, you have a whole section of boardwalk. Unfortunately, the township has not finished
Oh,
all the needs of
Right.
keeping it safe, so we're waiting for that.
right. Tony, do you have a favorite place?
Well, I don't know that anyone is particularly favorite. There's a nice hike off of East Mountain Avenue up into the Sauerland Mountains. That's a fun climb. It's a little bit rigorous. It's steep, and it's of course unpaved, and so footing is not great. But it's nice to get up and see some elevation
Right.
and look out.
Yeah, and don't you think the Sauerland Mountains has sort of risen in recognition and popularity? I mean, it's being taken seriously as a place to explore.
I certainly hope so,
yeah.
because it has lots of ecological reasons why it needs to be preserved as undeveloped and open space. It's too bad there's a big mine up there, but other than that, it's still pretty open.
Then there's always the vineyard at Unionville. So
Oh, yes. On the other side.
right, yeah. Rick, how about you?
Well,
You around here?
I enjoy any of the spots up in the Sauerlands. I've worked with the Friends of Princeton Open Space and the Friends of Montgomery Open Space, helping to maintain the trails up there. I've got a couple of the little trail signs on my wall in the apartment now when they got upgraded. And the most memorable experience was when I went back to find a bush, and there was a big camera there apparently to spot the deer in the area. I had to avoid that.
How about you, Carol?
I'm simple. There are so many open spaces in Mercer County that I know about that I haven't visited. And now I'm in Montgomery Township and all new territory, so I want to visit all of them. It's very simple.
I think we do have a surfeit of riches here. If I could just add one personal one, I was surprised. We like, and the two families we have here did a lot of hiking and visiting national parks and so on. And we were talking one day about what parks, the kids were grown, what park did they really like the best? And our kids said, we really like Marcon Park the best. And I was so surprised because it is so beautifully taken care of. but they really like the trees there. One of the beech trees they called the elephant tree, and then they reminded me that they could always find some kind of nook and cranny where they could run off of the path, and I couldn't find them. But it sort of goes to show you, you just never know what people remember or about their childhood and what's sort of exciting. So I hope maybe you can take one of your groups to explore at Marcon Park sometime.
There's a good one because it's got a tremendous number of trees, and
That's right.
most of them are
Labeled,
identified.
yes.
So you can have a tree walk, which is
Right.
quite wonderful. It's a great park.
Yeah, it has one of the best Japanese fern maple trees.
Yes.
But I think the one on Montgomery Road, when you get down near 518, is probably one of the best ones around. Got a house there. So what's coming up? What might people look forward to? Do you have your next trip all planned? And that would we're taping, we're recording this, Jock. I got it right. Jock says what we do is record. We don't tape. So are tomorrow, from our perspective, are you going someplace?
If the weather permits, we'd like to go to the poetry trail
Oh, yeah.
that was sponsored by Hella and Scott McVeigh.
Right.
But we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the trails most close to us.
Mm-hmm.
There are trails through the woods and past the farm fields right here
Mm-hmm.
at Stonebridge. They're well maintained by the township.
Mm-hmm.
They're not paved,
Mm-hmm.
but they're nice trails, a variety of topography.
Right.
They did
And-
build us a new bridge.
They did build a new bridge recently across the place where that trail crossed the stream, and so we'd urge the residents of Stonebridge to take a look at those
Right.
trails that are right here nearby.
Yeah.
You don't have to drive anywhere.
Maybe we could acquire a map that has the trails outside of.
Yes, there are maps.
There are
Stonebridge.
maps.
I bought them.
And everybody
Well, I was
here has
actually
been-
thinking on display someplace. You know how nice it is to stand in front of a map and show somebody where to go? So anyway, maybe put that on the
You
list.
can get one blown up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And just as a teaser,
yeah.
we're
Yes.
going to go here next. We're going to
Let's pass that over to Carol.
just as a teaser, we're going to go to one of the trails here, a distant one, way out beyond the cornfield, next week,
Okay.
hopefully. Well, this is all weather dependent.
Okay. So
Where the confluence of the Stony Brook and
No.
Millstone
No,
River.
Beedensbrook.
Sorry,
Millstone
Beedensbrook and the
River.
Millstone River
yeah.
meet down behind the cottages
Right.
and the field.
I sort of love walking out to Beedensbrook and pretending that it's just a little Grand Canyon. The way it sort of
See the
meanders
turtles.
and you're up high and so on. There are so many wonders here, and I guess it really means that we have to pay attention to preservation, but paying attention to preservation means appreciating what we have, and I think that furthers our mission to protect our environment, which I think we can be thankful that our surrounding counties, Somerset and the other counties, have made as a big mission. And I think we have to thank the taxpayers, because those were the first counties that put an open space tax on the local property tax, and the counties did the same thing, but of course we paid for it when the counties put it on their bill. So I think that's really a great measure of support for what you're helping us enjoy here, Trailblazers. And we look forward to hearing about some of your trips in the future. And thank you for joining us today here at Getting to Know You and getting to know the environment around us too. Thanks so much
Thank
to
you
the
for having me.
Glocklers and the Obers. Good.